Is this mic far enough away from me? Is this too far away?
I
Y'all
think
tell
you're-
us. Let me know.
I
I'm
think
sure
you're a little
Sarah.
too far.
I'm sure Sarah in the editing bay will tell me.
Yep.
Because I yelled too much last time.
It's not that you yelled too much last time.
I
You were
get
just
excited.
like loud in
Sarah,
general.
I just get excited about things.
Just,
I like
just
liking
three
things.
fingers away, Bryn. That's all you need.
Oh,
What do you think fisting is?
more than 3? Okay. Do you want to just jump right in? Tell the people what we're cooking with?
Well, I want to do an intro in case we need it.
Okay.
Okay. Can I do it?
Of course you can do it.
Okay.
You don't have to ask me for permission. You're a strong, independent woman.
Hey. Hi.
I'm a strong, independent woman.
I am a strong and independent woman, and this is Cult Flav is Going Off. I'm Sarah.
I'm Bryn. This
one
is
more
Fry. Fry, look at the camera.
He's too sleepy. And hey, this last week we got, well, it was like a couple weeks ago, we got some questions about this hot new oil in town.
And there ain't room
And
enough.
I didn't realize it was a thing until someone asked us in a live, I think, to talk about algae oil. We found it at like a schmancy butcher shop here in town.
It's sticky on the bottom. It picked up the dog hairs.
We tried it.
Oh, no.
We did some research on it. And we've got some strong feelings about it.
Clean neutral oil, seed oil free, 535 degrees Fahrenheit smoke point, 13 grams omega-9, neutral,
What's the name
light,
of the brand
a
again?
little buttery. This is from Algae Cooking Club. There's like 3 main brands right now. Algae Cooking Club is one of them. I think the other ones are Thrive and
And Zero Acre.
Zero Acre. There it is.
My biggest question is like, when did is this thing brand new or has this been around? Like, when did algae cooking oil become a thing?
And the answer, as with most technological advances,
Turns out
it's a war. The big one.
the big one.
And as most things invented in Germany in the middle of World War II, statistically probable Nazi biofuel.
Yes, biofuel is the answer.
So Richard Harder and Hans von Fitch at the University of Göttingen wanted to find a way to make cheaper fuel for the war effort.
Oh, because of World War II.
So they
They
proposed.
needed biofuel.
So they proposed they needed fuel in general, but they proposed cultivating microalgae to produce it.
But then I guess the question is like, okay, you needed fuel. Great. Why algae though? Like, why not corn or like soy or like
The classic biofuel things, right?
something else?
So my main understanding after doing some research on this was that there are 3 main reasons why algae was picked. One, it can grow pretty much anywhere, though it is sensitive to pests. But if you can get rid of pests, you can do some cool stuff with it. Like if you deprive it of sunlight, it will actually just consume sugars in its environment. So if it's in like a sugary water substrate, it will just consume that sugar and turn that into fat. And fat is really important for biofuel. That's essentially what we're looking at in terms of energy output. That's what the fuel is.
Yeah.
Chlorella is the example that's commonly referenced here.
That's an algae, right?
Chlorella is a type of algae that can basically increase its lipid storage up to 75% of its biomass. So the fat content of the algae, 75% of its biomass. That's
Crazy.
way higher than corn or soybeans. And so in theory, you're working with a much smaller amount of space and a much higher energy output. So very efficient land-wise, and in theory, you can do it with pretty limited resources.
Yeah, it's like 35 times the fat content of soybeans and like 75% the fat content of corn. That's
Right.
crazy.
So if you take all those things and add them up, like you can grow it kind of anywhere. You just need an environment that isn't like pest-ridden.
Yep.
You can remove the sunlight, and you can feed it sugar water instead. So that, in theory, you're now in an enclosed tank of sugar water. And then again, if you deprive it of nitrogen, you can actually increase its fat content. So you can kind of combine all those things, and you're kind of looking at a vat structure. And that's what most of these are doing. So you're in big enclosed
Big
tanks,
tanks.
right? No pests, no nitrogen, no sunlight, just sugar water. And they are kind of branding this as fermentation.
Sugar water.
Algae, your skin's hanging off your bones. But then once you're in the kitchen, it also has the benefit of being extremely neutral tasting and having an extremely high smoke point. So it's not just that it's really efficient to produce relative to other biofuels, but it's also a really it's a truly neutral oil that has a lot of like culinary purposes.
And it's produced like the same way that you would produce olive oil, right? It's just like
The pressing.
dried and cold
Yeah.
pressed.
Yeah, so you extract as much water content as possible, and then you press it.
Yeah.
Yep. So straight up cold pressed. I was really kind of surprised to see that this had been around in culinary use longer than I expected. I had only
Yeah.
heard of this recently. Apparently, it's been here in LA for quite a long time.
Yeah, right. There's a company called Thrive that I think started at Gelson's here in Los Angeles.
Shout out Gelson's.
Yeah, shout out
Slowest cashiers in the
Gelson's.
business.
They do have really slow cashiers. Oh my God. But yeah, originally started selling in like 2015, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, by 2019, they were distributing to like Walmart and like 5,000, other locations.
Five
which
is not
like,
that big of a deal. 5,000 is like
5,000 is
nationwide distribution,
right.
right?
So we've got distribution, but it feels like at like 2019, it kind of dropped off. And now it's starting to like have a resurgence, which is always interesting. Like, why did you drop off in 2019? My guess is the pandemic.
Famously in 2020.
Yeah, well, okay. Sure. 2020, 2019.
Right. But there just may not have been a market for it.
But now there's like a resurgence of this. Okay, what's causing the resurgence?
I think we know the answer. Is that a silent drum roll?
It's a silent drum roll.
Silent drum roll, please.
Silent drum roll. What's the answer, Bryn?
Wellness.
Wellness.
As usual. And so there's this whole push against seed oils, which is largely wellness driven. And when you hear the term wellness, I want you to like picture the S's as dollar signs, because it's a largely unregulated industry. And so a lot of kind of bad actors can jump in there because they can just find ways to sell money based on people's fears about what they put in their body.
And I think the thing that's driving these fears is like the seed oil conspiracy, mostly, right?
Right. Which is like, conspiracy is maybe like
maybe
an over the top term for it, because
you're right. That was a little much.
Well, it's just that the negatives aren't as bad as claimed, and in fact may not be that negative at all. It's like a correlation versus causation thing, right? Like, pretty classic. People say, okay, seed oils have a very high omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio, and the ratio is what's important here. Linoleic acid can oxidize, and one of the byproducts of that is arachidonic acid, which can cause inflammation. It's a kind of a carrier for inflammatory signals, is my understanding. I'm not a chemist,
I don't know.
not a
I always
biologist.
call it arachnidonic.
Arachnidonic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. I love that for you. It's like a little spider in your
It's a
body
little
that
spider.
makes your body inflamed.
Sorry, I derailed that completely.
With your spiders. It's like Wild Wild West. Okay. Arachidonic acid may increase inflammation, usually by a small amount. And especially at the amounts you're using in home cooking, not really a concern. The reason that it's become such an issue is that in the US, so much food is consumed that is pre-prepared, and since neutral oils, especially seed oils, are so widely available and so neutral and so flavorless, they're used a lot in junk food. So there's actually a correlation between the health issues of consuming this thing of junk food, not using the oil in a home kitchen environment.
Right.
That's really the concern. And seed oils are fine. If it's oxidized, you're going to know because it's going to smell rancid. That's not something that people can hide, no matter how many people will try and tell you that like they're bleaching the oils or some bullshit like that. That's not really how it works.
Right. So I think the biggest concern with seed oils in general is that it's pumped into so much fast food and so much junk food.
Right.
We are over consuming the junk food, and that's why we're having this issue with seed oils and omega-6.
Linoleic acid, which is an omega-6 fatty acid.
But if you cook it at home, you're using far less of it. It's more controlled, I guess, the amount.
So it's a polyunsaturated fat, and there are studies that indicate that those are much healthier for you in several different ways, like reducing the risk of heart disease compared to saturated fats like butter, tallow, lard, whatever. So the people who are saying like, oh, I eat tallow because it's the safest thing, that's not really true, and it's all relative. So
it's like the amount that you're consuming, right? How often are you consuming it? How much are you consuming?
But wellness,
everything in moderation, people.
Right. Over consuming anything is a problem.
Yeah.
That's the whole gist. You're gonna be just fine cooking with whatever neutral oil you want. Now, the other downside of algae oil is it only has omega-9 fatty acids, which mostly your body produces for you. Not all of what you need, and you're going to easily get the rest of what you need. You don't need to consume it. So algae oils promoting that they have omega-9 fatty acids, not really helpful.
I think the biggest issue for me with algae oil in general is the price point. Yes. This was a $30 bottle, which I guess is like pretty average for algae oil on the market today. It's
Yep.
like $28 to $30 for 16 ounces.
For 16 ounces, which is 2 cups.
We can get a gallon of rice bran oil, which is our preferred neutral oil, for the same price. $30. A whole gallon of this stuff.
I think it's like 35, but yeah, they're roughly the same price. 2 cups versus 16 cups.
Right. I think the price point alone is like the biggest reason that I would say don't bother getting algae oil.
Well, you couldn't deep fry in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're
right.
paying
There's no way.
$70.
There's no way.
That's like
Unless
just
you
not
just
a
have
thing.
money to burn.
But
and
I
you
wouldn't
wanna-
recommend it anyway.
Yeah. VCs getting behind algae cooking oil is always kind of a question mark for me too, because you know that they're after money.
Well, they're after monopolies. Like I've
Right.
raised venture capital before. Like every one I've ever talked to is, do you think like this is a winner take all market, and do you think that you can be that winner?
Yeah.
Right. That's
Right.
the question I hear most often in different phrasings. Right. So they want monopolies.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's only 3 players in a market and they think that they have some kind of cost effect, they're going to try and suppress the price initially in order to like kind of put their finger on the scale.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, I mean, if this is what the suppressed price looks like, I don't think it's going to come down.
Yeah.
Especially if
Right.
someone becomes the last player in the game, it's going to be really hard for them to get to like efficiencies of scale that surpass that VC input.
I don't know. Like over time, eventually we might see algae oil, like the price point come down for it. But I think we're far off from that.
I think the only thing that would do that is government subsidies. Like that's why corn
Totally.
and soybean oil are so cheap. No matter how much is
Totally.
produced, the
And I
government's
know
gonna
that
pay
there
some
are
subsidy.
some government programs that are investing in algae oil production
Probably for fuel.
for fuel in general. Yeah. But I think that like the use of it in cosmetics is going to make a huge dent.
If
in
I
how
was,
much
well,
we produce. Yeah, what?
sorry. If I was growing algae oil, that's what I would go for. Cosmetics is less regulated and you can like charge as much as you want. Like $30 doesn't really break the bank in cosmetics the same way it does in cooking. Are you switching to algae oil?
Am I switching to algae oil?
Yeah.
No, fuck no. Like, unless I can buy a gallon of that shit for $30, like rice bran oil,
Yeah.
I'm just sticking with rice bran oil. Like,
So-
I like the idea of having an oil that's like eco-friendly. I can see how that like could be helpful, but until it can compete with my gallon of rice bran oil for $30,
Is also famously pretty ecologically friendly because it's
Yeah.
literally the waste from rice production.
I think I'm gonna just stick with my rice bran oil.
It's kind of interesting that it exists. Like I like it from like a curiosity standpoint.
Totally.
I don't think it's practical though.
It also taste it. Actually, I want to taste it, and then I want to taste it next to rice bran.
Is
Okay, so
drinking
we've got-
oil on a podcast what our life has become? Because this is the wildest shit.
Okay, so the algae oil has kind of like a green flavor to it.
Very light though.
But what
Right?
does rice bran have?
Honestly, it tastes like what I expect rice bran to taste like. Like it's kind of like lightly woody,
I think lightly woody is a good way to describe that flavor.
but it's not fishy like canola, which is usually my
No.
concern.
Hint o matcha.
Oh, matcha, she says.
Yeah.
So I think the rice bran oil, has slightly more flavor, but you can't taste it at all in the finished product. Like canola oil, I
No.
can taste. Like it
Oh,
has.
you can smell canola
right.
oil.
It's just got a fishiness to it a lot of the time.
Totally.
It doesn't make sense to trade off for that tiny, tiny increase in neutrality or for the slightly higher smoke point because
Right.
I'm not trying to cook above 450 anyway, which is
Oh, is that rice bran? 450?
somewhere in that range. Like
And algae oil is 535.
I'm almost never cooking above 400, like in a case where I actually care about it. Because the only time I'm worried about the smoke point is really deep frying. I'll happily cook well above the smoke point with pretty much any oil if I'm like searing something, but 350 to 450 is the like sweet spot for searing anyway. Should we get into our questionable content?
Let's do it, babe. Let's
Yay!
get into it.
Listener questions, audience questions, community questions, however we want to phrase that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet. Community questions
Questions
feels most
people
ideal to
ask
me.
us. It's
If
fine.
you want us to answer a question that you would just rather not do the research for, or maybe you did the research and still want to ask it because you think it's interesting, you can leave us a voicemail at our new phone number, 424-419-FLAV, if you're an old person like us who remembers how to dial touch tone.
Or if you don't want to call a phone number, you can go over to our Going Off channel on our website and you can ask it there.
Yeah.
Easy. Cultflave.com. That's the
Cultflave.com.
website.
So since we didn't have those announced at the time of recording, we're going to go with TikTok and YouTube comments today. First one, Russet Kind on TikTok asked for olive oil recommendations.
Just a blanket statement olive oil
Is
recommendations.
olive oil Rex question mark? Do you have opinions on this?
Oh, I would bucket them into like two groups. There's like the dressing olive oil and there's the cooking olive oil. And I think if you're using cooking olive oil, I would go like minimal flavor. Don't spend too much money on it. That's my personal take on it. That new brand that's out that everybody's Graza, yeah. Everybody's like losing their minds over. I think that works great. It's just not going to be the highest quality olive oil, and I think that's totally fine.
From the perspective, like, we're going to put ours in a squeeze bottle anyway.
Right.
I appreciate that. But even their drizzle, I think is what it's called. It's drizzle and sizzle. Sizzle is the cooking one, drizzle's the dressing one. Even drizzle's not very flavorful.
No.
So this flavorfulness comes down to like volatile compounds that you smell, and these burn really easily, and they're reduced by cooking. So it doesn't really matter what you do. It's going to be fine. You might get more bitterness if you use like the drizzle or whatever, or some equivalent from another brand. I think I largely agree with you. I would probably switch to neutral oils only for like high heat stuff, just because you're burning money otherwise.
Right.
Like that's just like a practical point. For dressings, though, the brands that we tend to turn to are Partana and what's the other one? Paisano, I think.
Yes.
Now that's not because they're like the best ones, and we've done like some conclusive testing. It's just these ones are widely available and they're pretty decent. So my thinking on like how to use olive oil was largely informed by actually one specific piece in the New York Times by a name you might recall, Harold McGee. Does that ring a bell for you?
Oh, Harold McGee. He's the On Food and Cooking guy.
Yes. He literally wrote the book on food science with On Food and Cooking. Easily our most used like culinary science resource over the years. Our book is well marked up. We use it constantly.
Yes.
I bought it in 2009 when I was going to go to culinary school, and like we've been making use of it ever since.
That's been a huge point of reference for us.
So he did a piece, and the thing I remember is basically like 350 when you're going to be sautéing. That kind of goes for all sautéing. This is going to be so distracting.
Our dog is just going to be licking himself.
Buddy, he's licking his olives. He doesn't have any. 350 is like a typical temperature for sautéing, and that's, he says, certainly hot enough to change the composition of these flavor compounds, these volatile compounds. Mm-hmm. So you're either getting bitterness or nothing in most cases. That was like the gist of it, and so that's kind of how I've thought about it ever since. So don't trust me, trust Harold McGee.
He's a good one to trust.
Tressa Stapley Wadsworth. I assume that's Wadsworth. What do you think of avocado oil? Sarah, what do you think of avocado oil?
I don't love the flavor of it.
Right.
So that's a personal reason.
Real grassy.
Yeah, real grassy. Don't love the flavor. Secondarily, it's easily counterfeited, and sometimes you can buy it off the shelf, open it up, and it's like immediately rancid because it goes rancid pretty quickly. So I don't know. I don't trust it as much as I trust other oils out there.
Well, unrefined specifically has some of the same issues as olive oil, where even if it has those flavor compounds, those are going to change at that heat. So even if it has a high smoke point, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get problematic flavors from it anyway.
Right.
So it's just not worth the trade-offs to me. Luna asks, is ghee an okay fat for stainless steel? Most of these came from our stainless steel, like how to cook with stainless steel.
Ghee is absolutely okay to cook with on stainless steel. It's just clarified butter. You're removing the milk solids from it, so it's going to have a higher smoke point than butter. So,
does Pam work as an oil? This is again referring to the stainless steel post.
I love that question so much.
Yes, there's a few problems with Pam specifically. Some of the compounds in some of the sprays can be problematic for nonstick, which I don't know why you'd need to Pam nonstick anyway, like it's nonstick. So my understanding is that like lecithin, I think, is the ingredient in them that can be problematic for nonstick, but I'm not 100% sure of that. The problem for me with Pam is I want to use more than would be reasonable from a spray bottle because I think of oil as an extension of my pan. It's It's much more efficient at conducting heat to the surface of the food, and it can kind of rise up around it. Even just having like a millimeter or two of oil in the bottom of the pan makes it easier for me to get more consistent browning across the surface of a piece of food. And that a couple millimeters is a lot of a bottle of PAM, right? Or any spray oil. So for me, it's just not practical. I understand that some people have medical reasons not to use that much oil, but
According to the internet, you should not use PAM on nonstick coated pans because it contains lecithin and it will damage the nonstick coating.
That's what I said. Yay. Sarah, how do you prevent oil splatter? I feel like my kitchen is coated since switching to stainless.
Oh boy. The easiest way to prevent oil splatter is to try and remove as much water content from whatever you're putting in the pan to cook with that oil. It's the water that is reacting with the oil and causing it to sputter.
It's just rapidly boiling water, and that like launches the oil into the air.
Yeah. Very scary, especially for me, who accidentally lit her kitchen on fire as a kid and tried to put it out with water, which is so bad. Never do that.
Yeah. Removing as much water as possible is good, but honestly, we don't do really anything other than we try and have our fan hood on high, which will help extract some of the vaporized oil, which would otherwise condense on other surfaces. But we've had splatter screens and things like that. I think that holds in too much steam, which causes other problems. So
I guess 3 things. You can turn your hood on, your hood range on, if you've got one. You should have one. Remove as much of the water content from the food that you're cooking. So like paper towel it.
Blot.
Let it dry out for a little while before you add it. Thirdly, I guess just like get really good at cleaning up after you cook.
Dawn dish soap.
Dawn dish soap is
great at degreasing. Every time we cook, we have to clean up a whole oil
we also
slick.
deal with the same
happens.
thing. At Shut Up Hipster.
Great name.
I know. Asks, for us that do have medical reasons for not eating as much fat, do you have any tips?
A couple. The one that popped up in the comments, shout out Steph, was using an air fryer, which makes a lot of sense. You can definitely use a lot less fat and still get those get better results than you could otherwise, because convection is moving that hot air around. And so while still air is like very slow conductor of heat, moving air can like touch the element, come directly to the food, and you can get some better results faster. Other than that, I mean, you've always got wet cooking methods. You can definitely work with like more dry roasting techniques and things like that, but ultimately you're not going to get the same results as frying food.
Hope that helps.
Hopefully it helps.
Cool. That's the questions we have. Again, if you want to ask us questions or you want to hear your voice on the show,
424-419-3528. That's FLAV.
Or you can go to our Going Off channel on our website and
just post something in there. You'll probably get answers way faster in that channel, honestly.
Yeah.
But we'll read your question. We'll read some of the other comments, the answers that people gave. We'll try to be helpful.
Last segment.
Yeah. On the note of we try to be truthful and consistent. This is true of like all of our reviews and everything. We don't think that our opinions on food can be truly objective. We think that there are some parts that will be more likely to be common among people than others. But just because we say something is fact doesn't mean like it's true for everyone. It's just true for us. So we think on that note, it's helpful for us to give you more idea of our taste. And in particular, with our first few episodes, giving you like a introduction to our tastes is probably valuable.
A little amuse-bouche.
Wow, Sarah. That was very good.
I know.
Holy shit. We're introducing our mouths.
We're doing this as a draft, right?
Yes. This is a draft format. It's like a sports draft, right? Like fantasy football or something like that.
I've not done this before. So I think the way it works is like if you say one that's on my list, I have to think of a new one.
Yes. It's like fantasy football or something like that. If I pick a player, you can't have that same player. Damn. Is the idea, right?
Can I go first?
Yeah, but we're going to go, it's basically like you're going to go first, and then I'm going to go twice, and then you're going to go twice. So we're going back and forth, but each round we flip order is the gist. We're going to pick 10 each.
All right.
A lineup of 10 ingredients. I kind of played defensively, I'm just going to say. Like, the things I didn't want to live without.
Okay. I did too. So this is going to be fun.
Great.
All right. My first one.
Yeah.
That I know I want. Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt.
That was my number one pick also. Number one seed, Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt.
And you might be asking why that specific brand, and it's basically because of the crystal structure. It's like much easier to control the salinity with diamond crystal kosher salt versus some of the other brands like Morton that have like different. The crystal sizes of Morton just aren't as equal.
It's the ratio of salinity to crystal size.
That's what I'm trying to get.
Diamond crystal is like a nice like shape and size to sprinkle with, and it's not very like salty. Morton is much saltier and is a little bit harder to control, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. Canned tomatoes, whole peeled canned tomatoes. I don't care about San Marzano at all. That doesn't matter to me. We've tasted a bunch of them side by side. Cento was the best brand.
Truly tasted,
which was like $1.35 a can or something like that. Like super cheap, so good. I just use them in everything. Is the short answer. Like we use them in so many different cuisines, and tomatoes are one of those flavors I don't want to do without. So, canned tomatoes.
What's the can of choice? Oh, wait, you said
Cento.
Cento is the. Yeah. I think
we have
Meyer
Bianco, though.
was also up there. Like, oh shit. Muir Glen was also up there in like quality and like the flavor profile that we really liked.
Yeah.
If you want to have a really fun night, buy a bunch of canned tomatoes and taste them to find out which one you like the most.
Bianco di Napoli, we tend to have
that's a date night idea.
Wow. Bianco di Napoli is like very broadly available right now, and so we have a bunch of those, and you can also order them by like the flat, which is kind of nice. So it's more of a convenience thing, but I think Muir Glen are technically better.
What's your second one?
My second pick is coconut milk.
Oh,
and those two
I don't
together.
even have that one on my.
Coconut milk.
Of course you do.
I love coconut so much, but coconut milk, one, you can cook it down, like reduce it, like all the water content out of it, and you have like super flavorful coconut oil, which is great for a ton of things. But like, I'm a coconut boy.
I don't remember what brand of coconut milk we have. Not that we have to say specifically.
Arroy D, I buy in the boxes that are like almost a liter. I think they're 800 mils or something like that.
Yeah, big boxes of it are clutch.
I think they're a liter actually. Yeah.
When was the last time you heard anyone say clutch to describe how great
you're so
something
old.
was? My turn?
Yes.
Unsalted butter. I'm going with the basics. Unsalted butter because I want to be able to control the amount of salt that I'm cooking with. And if you use salted butter, you have far less control over how much extra salt you're adding to a thing. This is very common, like to a lot of people. There are some people who legitimately don't know this, and I guess that's who I'm speaking to.
People have real hard-ons for salted butter right now, which I don't get.
I love salted butter for table butter.
Right, but you can just add it to your butter whenever you want.
I know,
or like you can culture it. Salted butter is never the best case scenario for anything. Like cultured butter is far superior for like direct application, and then unsalted butter is more convenient for like things like baking because ratios of salting change.
Yep.
Okay, what's your fourth? No, third.
Wait, this is your third. My third one is cane sugar.
Just sucrose, straight up.
Yeah, and I was kind of between like palm sugar and cane sugar.
Palm sugar was the one that was on my list before.
I use cane sugar more.
Cane sugar.
I do a lot of baking, so like cane sugar is necessary.
It's also useful for preventing crystallization and enhancing flavor. My third pick, koshihikari rice.
Okay.
Which is my favorite short grain rice, common in Chinese and Japanese food in particular, and Korean. It's a Japanese cultivar, but it's commonly grown in the north of California as well. So it's widely available. It just hits. We buy it in
rice itch.
We buy it in 20-pound bags. We have rice dispensers in our cabinet.
Rice dispensers are amazing.
That's one of the three that we keep on hand. Basmati, jasmine, and koshihikari. But koshihikari is by far my favorite. My fourth is garlic.
Oh, can you be more specific?
A bulb of garlic.
Damn it. Okay, fine. I had garlic bulb. And I said garlic bulbs because I like to feel fancy.
Why is that fancy?
Because I feel like the extra effort of like peeling garlic is just very fancy compared to like buying it and putting it in your fridge, like the containers of it. Oh,
like pre-peeled or jarlic? Both, like, I guess.
Pre-peeled and jarlic, I guess.
Pre-peeled has its place for sure. Jarlic is an abomination.
For rice, I also just blanket statement was like, I want a short and a long grain.
That was your whole thing?
End of rice, yeah.
I don't think that's fair. I mean, you could still find your short grain and your long grain, but you need to list them individually.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
But.
Okay, whatever. I'm going to move on to
Okay.
the next.
What's your number 4?
Black pepper.
You're going a very French direction with
I
this
am
that
going
I'm
a
not expecting
very
it.
French direction.
Yeah.
I realized as I was writing, well, I was like, okay, ingredients that I love to have on hand
Yeah.
are like very baseline things.
Yeah. No,
But I gotta have black pepper. It's gotta be whole, and I do not remember the name of the black pepper we have right now. I was
it's
gonna go look, but
Telecherry
you
black
were
pepper. This one's from Soeos.
great. Telecherry, black pepper,
Telecherry is the classic. It's very standard.
and eggs.
Eggs is your next one?
Yep,
Just straight up eggs?
eggs.
Yeah.
Just eggs.
Grade A large eggs.
Yep,
50 grams a piece.
yep.
That's actually the reason for large eggs, by the way. Like, large eggs are the standard because they are 50 grams a piece.
I had chickens at one point, and I remember looking into selling the eggs, and you had to be able to grade them to sell them.
Yeah.
And so there was like a special scale that you had to buy to like figure out where your eggs landed. But it's hard when you have farm chickens because they all kind of lay different size eggs, and it kind of depends on the time of year too. And it's like,
Yeah.
it was just kind of a pain in the butt. And
Right.
you have to pasteurize the eggs before you can sell them. And it's a whole other thing.
I don't think that's true.
You did if you wanted to sell them like at grocery stores.
You have to wash them. You don't have to pasteurize them, I don't think.
You do if you want
You
to
have
sell
to
them
pasteurize
at
them?
grocery stores. Yeah.
Okay. My 5th is limes.
Oh, limes is good.
I know. Limes is good. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I didn't have limes on my list.
I picked limes as my first acid because, one, they go with everything I've picked this far.
Oh shit, you went yeah.
They
Yep.
work really well. Like, I'm like,
All of
okay, I'm
yours
building up, right?
All of yours paint a picture. Mine don't.
Well, they kind of do. Like I said, you're going very French here.
I know. I'm just going like really baseline stuff.
Limes are not my preferred citrus even, but they go well with all that stuff. And I'm not a hater by any means. And then there's margaritas.
Can't say no to that.
And my number 6 is shengqiu, which is Chinese light soy sauce.
Oh yeah.
My favorite soy sauce personally. My most used by far. What most people I think experience for soy sauce in the US is it's not light soy sauce, it's low sodium soy sauce, which is different. It's kind of the opposite. Like light soy sauce is the salty one. Dark soy sauce is more for color in most cultures. And so most people are experiencing a lower sodium version of I think it's marodaizu, which is like shoyu
Okay.
from Kikkoman, right?
Yep.
The Kikkoman low sodium, that's like the least salty soy sauce. This is going to be my salt source, honestly. You took Diamond Crystal. Mine's going to be shengqiu.
Is that your 2?
That is my 2. What's your 6th?
Whole milk.
Sarah.
I know.
Yeah, you're really going in a certain like mine paints a
Extremely
picture and yours paints a picture, and that's so interesting.
A direction.
Yeah, extremely in a direction.
In a direction. And my 7th is Yukon cold potatoes.
Okay, now it's all adding up. This is why the garlic was there too, I bet.
Yeah.
Why didn't you pick potatoes first? Oh, you didn't want them if you couldn't mash them?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I got the stuff I needed. The sugar
Incredible.
is just kind of like a
Is bacon next? Well, was that your 7th?
yeah, this is my 7th, yep.
Okay. My 7 then. Sherry vinegar.
Oh. Fuck yeah.
Now that one doesn't really fit with the rest of the stuff I was doing, but it's
Yeah.
one of those ingredients that I use constantly. And my 8th is red wine vinegar.
Oh, fuck you, Bryn. I feel like you're just taking all my
sherry
stuff.
vinegar, aged, like rich, deep, and red wine vinegar. I particularly like, I've made my own. I like it with Sangiovese, which is very bright and fruity and kind of like opposites of each other. I would think of red wine vinegar as like a very like bright fruity wine, and then like a sherry vinegar as like the prune version of it. Sarah, what's your 8?
Going with the theme here is thyme.
This is like the big thing I missed is just like I didn't add spices. I added like flavorful main ingredients.
Yeah. And sour cream.
Sarah, were you hungry for a specific dish when you wrote this?
Can you see where I'm going with this?
Oh, yes. 9. I couldn't leave it off the list. Lime leaves.
Of course, lime leaves.
Yeah, my favorite ingredient. I have it tattooed on me. But they're not very practical for these purposes. They go well with everything I've listed thus far for the most part. But I just couldn't leave them off the list. So they got my 9. And my 10 is cabbage.
Cabbage is a good one.
Yeah. If I
Cabbage is a
had to
good
pick
one.
one of them, I'd probably just go for straight green. Like Savoy is a bit
Yeah,
more
yeah.
like specific, and so is Napa.
Yeah.
I think green cabbage I could get most of what I'm looking for with. Sarah, can you please give me your 10?
My number 10. I think this counts. Chicken thighs.
I had chicken as my number 17 in case we got that
Nice.
far. What else do you have as your leftovers?
My leftovers, I was like, well, I could do chicken thigh or ground lamb.
Mm.
I want to have a
Interesting.
protein on there. I
Yeah.
love ground lamb.
Ground lamb was your pick though. Oh, because yeah, the stir fried ground lamb
Yeah,
with
you
like
can do
cumin.
so
You didn't
much.
have cumin in there.
I know. I didn't have any spices either.
You had time.
I had time.
Yeah.
But that was for my mashed potatoes.
But priorities.
Listen,
You
you
can do
can
like a
do
shepherd's
so
pie with
much
that,
with
right?
potatoes.
Shepherd's pie, like you've got most of the ingredients there.
Yeah. You can do so much with potatoes.
Yeah.
Potatoes is my main squeeze.
What else do you have as your leftovers? Like, what are the other options you had written down?
Red onions, yellow onions,
Mhm.
rice bran oil, in case I wanted to fry up
Wow.
some potatoes.
Those are your favorite ingredients, or is this just what you'd be afraid to be without these things?
This is just like, I love to have if I have this stuff on hand, I can do
a lot with it. Yeah, it's very like desert islandy.
Yeah.
Your list, I think.
just give me potatoes and these basic ingredients, and I am happy. If I had space for the rice bran oil, I think I could have done a little bit more, but that's fine.
Lemons was my next one. I was trying to think of a chili because I wanted spice from somewhere, and the dried chili I like to use the most is Urjingtao chili, which is, commonly ground up in Chinese food. Shallots.
Shallots are great.
I had pork, but I would have chosen pork shoulder specifically. Green onions. Bread flour was my number 16. Noodles didn't even make the cut, so I was like, I got rice. I'm fine.
Yeah. I know. I was kind of thinking like, well, if I have eggs and I have AP flour, I can make noodles too.
Most of the noodles I make these days are like water noodles. They're not egg noodles, so I would have just gone
You
with...
could just do AP flour
I
too.
wrote flour down early, but it was like number 7 and got pushed down a long way. The chicken, fish sauce, dry milk powder. Those are the other ones I had. Because dry milk powder I like to use for like roasting.
Yeah, right.
Because it increases your sugar content at the surface.
For bones? Because I know you've put it on bones before.
I use it on chicken wings for
wings,
making like
that's
brown
right.
chicken stock. So it's just like a way
That's
of
right.
adding extra
Oomph.
like depth. Yeah.
Do you want to eat some food?
Yes. Thanks for hanging out, y'all. We will see you next Sunday. They're going to drop every Sunday, first thing in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
YouTube and the podcast,
Yeah.
regular podcast. Depending on how you're seeing this right now or listening to it, it'll be there every Sunday. Go over to cultflav.com, join our community, get in there with other like-minded cooks.
At least go check it out. It's pretty cool. Bryn built all of it.
Should we make a way for people to post like little messages or something? That's
Dude,
like,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe
Like
we'll
if
have,
we
like, a
had like a
ticker.
ticker or
Yeah.
something at the bottom where people could like post messages that would like air on the...
we can make it work.
It's fun building stuff.
Yeah, it is fun building stuff. Thank you all for hanging out. This was our first episode, so I know it's rough, but
Yeah.
that's why Sarah's editing it.
I'm going to super glue. I'm going to chop it up. I'm going to shut Bryn down. No.
That's actually pretty reasonable. Okay,
Oh, God.
I'm hungry. Are you hungry?
Yeah, I'm really hungry. Let's go eat.